So first I thought, call it, whoso knoweth himself knoweth the Lord. It's a very classical saying of one of the prophets. Then I thought, well, it doesn't exactly express the spirit of the times. So I thought I'll modify it. So I changed it to whoso knoweth himself or herself knoweth the truth. So I thought that's better, so express more what we do here and expresses the spirit of the time. I wasn't satisfied. Sounded a bit too sanctimonious. And it's not how I exactly looked at our work. So finally I had a guidance. My guidance interfered and gave me the title. And the title is a modern saying that goes, "He's looking at you, kid." And that really more expresses the spirit of what we do here. That's as far as I went about the talk. So now, here's looking at you again. So, my way of seeing it is that we're all looking, right now. You're looking here, right? And as you're looking toward here, you have in your mind that I'm sitting here, right? Individual who's sitting here in a chair, looking at you and talking. But that's really where we start, let's say. That's where we start the looking. I don't necessarily experience myself as somebody who's sitting here looking at you. In other words, I might not be experiencing myself as somebody who's sitting in a chair, for instance. I might not be the one who's talking, for instance. I might, for instance, experience it as a 60-headed being sitting in this room, each face looking at the other face. So let's give us an entry into what we want to talk about. See, I'm not interested in working to relieve problems. See, our approach is not oriented toward solving problems or resolving emotional issues, although that would be partly what has to happen, just to get to the point of what we want to do, how to really do it. Not interested into turning towards some kind of a spiritual reality or transcendental reality and pray to it or worship, although that might happen sometimes. My interest is to really find out what the situation is. What is it that is actually here? What is it that is actually there? Instead of starting from a place of already assuming what I want to happen. I want to divorce my husband or get another job or see God or die in the void. You know, all these things sounds good, it's fine. I mean, people could do that in their life. Why not? But how about really find out what's really there? Is there such a thing? Is there a husband? Is there God? Is there such a thing as void? And if those things exist, what are they? So our way or our approach is an approach of exploration or investigation that has the attitude of, here's looking at you, kid. Right? It's an attitude of affection, appreciation, attitude of celebration. So there's love, there's tenderness, there's openness to what is there. There's a celebration of it. As I said, you start by looking at the situation. There are people sitting here, everybody's looking or listening, and somebody's talking, and there are tables and lights and all of that stuff. But that's what we bring with us. That's where we start. This is a table, of course, because it's what your mother told you at one of those days. There's a table. And since your mother told you it was a table, and you've heard it many times from many people, you have believed that there are tables. This universe has tables in it. And you realize there are many things, tables and houses and people and emotions and God and this and that. All these things that you were told that actually exist, and that became the universe, and the book was closed, and that was it. And then you start trying to live your life from that perspective. Our approach here is to question the whole thing. Is that true? Is this a table? Is there such a thing as a table? See? Is it true that sometimes I get sad or hurt or angry? Do I ever get married? And I understand, of course, to go about that kind of exploration is a little scary. But every time you leave something old and try to go to something new and virginal, there is excitement or fear. It's normal. So the idea is to really explore in as an efficient, and as effective, and as direct a way as possible. What are we? Who are we? What the hell is here? What is this world? What is this reality? What is life? And when we find out what is it, who am I, what is this world, what is the reality, what is the humanity, to also find out how am I supposed to live? What does it mean to live? What is life? How to go about it? What's important about it anyway? Usually, when most people enter any school of work, they carry with them what's called their ton of cabbage, which means all their ideas that the world is such and such and such, so I'm going to enter into this school to learn how to be happy in it. But genuine schools try to get rid of your ton of cabbage first. And your ton of cabbage is all of your ideas and your belief about who you are and what reality is. And really, it's not only a matter of dropping the ton of cabbage, it's also dropping, or some sense, dropping your clothes, taking off your clothes, shedding your skin, getting rid of your mind. So it's a lot. I mean, the ton of cabbage includes the one who carries it. So the way I see it is not like we work on ourselves or we do some kind of spiritual work or inner work so that we will be enlightened and we live a happy life. It doesn't mean that way. That's not the meaning of realization. The meaning of realization is to find out what is it really here. You see? What is it really? And when you find out what is it really here, it becomes more obvious what to do and how to live, what's important in life anyway. And then really, if a person does it, if a person is courageous enough, if a person is lion-hearted enough to venture into the unknown, which means nothing but letting go of what you know, then we realize that the world we live in is a world of mystery. It's a world of wonder, world of beauty. That's a magical world. It's really pretty magical. It's very mysterious in a magical kind of way. It's a very... If we really allow ourselves to see it without our ton of cabbage, it's full of wonder in the sense all the time we're looking at it, we haven't got the vaguest idea what's there. You just look with wonder. It's amazing. It's beautiful, colorful, magical, transforming all the time, mysterious. But if your mind goes into it, to really see it as it is and let your mind goes into it, your mind just dissolves just like that. Doesn't know what it is. What is it? It's a mystery. Are there human beings here? That's what we believe. Are there individuals here? That's what we believe. Well, let's say that's one of the ways of seeing it. But is that what it is? Is that the only way of seeing it, of experiencing it? Am I really an individual who's a man of such and such an age, who was born to my father and my mother, had my brother and sisters, went to school, had my problems, and here I am now, realized sitting here? No. That is one of the ways of seeing it from the perspective of what our mothers told us. As far as I could see it, the person who was born many years ago is gone forever. And the person who lived yesterday is also gone. And the person who said the last sentence is already gone. And it's not already gone. I'm not saying all of this because I'm somebody who lost their ego and all of this. No, everybody is like that all the time. That is the fact for everybody, for all of reality. That all of reality that we see is mysterious and is new all the time. You see? You think just because you saw somebody yesterday, you see them again now, you think they're the same person. How can that be? How can something that existed yesterday and yesterday is no more exist now? You came through this door, you sat here. You think the person who came through this door is the one who's sitting now. But think of it, the person who came through this door doesn't exist anymore, because that time, that existence of somebody going through the door is gone. It only exists in your memory. The person who's sitting now is the person who's sitting now. This person didn't come from the person who entered the door. The person who's sitting now is a person who is appearing in front of my eyes right now, magically. Really, everybody here is appearing magically out of nowhere. See, that's just an example of what I mean. It's a world of magic and mystery. If we just allow ourselves to see it without our usual ideas or usual beliefs of who we are or what things are. So, my way of looking at things, I don't even know how to say it's my way of looking at things, the way that appears to me is that this world is amazing. Human beings are amazing kind of things. The body that we have is some kind of a sensory organ, some kind of organ of perception that is really, you could say, an eye for the universe to experience itself. Think of it that way. We have the universe, there's all the stars and the galaxies and empty space, and earth, ocean, rocks, and all of that. Every once in a while there's a soft spot in this universe. And that soft spot has become so soft that it could start perceiving its environment. That's what a human being is. Why not look at it that way? Why look at it as this a human being? We're born one of those days, you're going to die the other day, you're going to have your problems, and you have to be sure to pay your taxes and go to work and all of that. Why not look at it as you're an organ of perception for the universe? There's no other way for the universe to know itself. Really, there isn't. How else? Whether you call God or the cosmic being or the universe, whatever you call it, you see, there's no way for that existence to perceive and to experience, to live, except through living beings. And human beings are the most sensitive that way. So I see being a human being as some kind of a magical, amazing kind of a eye or sensory organ that can experience and live all kind of things and can know the universe, reality, and the nature of reality in all its levels and dimensions and manifestations in all of its aspects and all of its richness and all its beauty and its wonder. And for me to do the work is to participate in that world, in this magical universe. It is not to be able to solve an emotional problem. See? It is not to be able to have a religious experience, but to be able to participate in the real world, the world as it really exists. not the world that we have been conditioned to believe. But it's a mysterious world, just the fact that we can be conditioned to see it in a way that it isn't. That by itself is mind-blowing. I mean, how can that be? I mean, there is this universe, if you really look at it objectively, it's living, it's pulsing, it's breathing, it's alive. Everything is alive. It's one living, huge, infinite, eternal, some kind of beingness. And for that to be lost, so that for us to experience ourselves, those little things, walking around in the street and driving cars and having our emotional problems and all of that to become, that by itself is an amazing thing and is worthy of investigation and excitement. That is what is meant, whoso knoweth himself. You see? To know yourself, to know who you are, is to find out, what the hell are you? What is it that is you? Are you really what you started knowing in yourself when you were 13 years old? Like, we were existing, when we were, according to what is said, we were born, we were existing. And one of those days, around age 3 or so, we started, oh, that's me. My name is such and such. Hi, Mommy. Hi, Daddy. Good to see you. And they start living our life that's how it is. And everybody seems to talk to you like that. Hey, Hamid. Hey, you. And, they call you and they tell you to go away and they punish you. And after a while you believe, hey, I must be this person here, sitting here, walking around and eating things. That's who I am, right? That's what reality is. And we take it for granted. And then you have to go through a whole big mess going to, therapy, spiritual school to find out, oh, no, that's not true, really. By the way, I hear that different people here know me by different names. So I should clarify that a little. Some people know me as A.H. Almaas. That's my book name. That's the name I use for my books. Other people know me as Dr. Ali. And usually what people call me here is my first name, which is Hamid. So if you hear me referring to Hamid, that's referring. You see, when somebody is walking through the door, sitting here, you see, most of us usually, the way our mother and father and our teachers and society taught us, is that there's this entity, this individual, that's come, parked their car, came through here, whatever they were feeling, and they came and sat. I don't perceive it that way. What I perceive is that there is this kind of being that keeps popping in different places, out of nowhere, and just pops in different places. Finally, it pops right here. You see it that way if you just eliminate the concept of time. You took time to be a reality. Your mother told you were born on such and such a date, and you're, oh, what's that? What do you mean I was born such and such a date? After years of telling you, when you're probably 7, 8, you find, oh, there's time. What is it? You never saw it, but they tell you it exists. So you believe it. After a while, everything according to time, then, that's part of our fabric of everyday reality. That we're really mysterious kind of beings. I keep not being able to say the word, to say beings, it doesn't somehow do it. Sometimes we're mysterious beings. Sometimes we're not mysterious beings. We're just mysterious. And the whole problem, if there's a problem, is a matter of fixing ourselves, fixing reality in a certain way. You see, saying I am such and such, the world is such and such, reality is such and such, my life is such and such, and fighting day and night to keep it that way. It has to be that way. Now, if it isn't that way, if it is, maybe that's one of the ways of experiencing it, a few minutes a day, but it could be seen all kinds of other ways, just as valid and more real, then it's understandable. You know, you're trying to fix it in a certain way, a certain mold, a certain image, will create a lot of trouble. And that's where human suffering comes from. Trying to make the world or ourselves or reality conform to an idea, to a world that we have created when we were very young. Trying, because that takes a tremendous amount of energy, because you're trying to create a whole universe that doesn't exist. You see? All the time, each one of us really putting tremendous amounts of energy and effort and attention in trying to create a reality, a universe that actually doesn't exist that way exactly. And we fight for it. Day and night, even our dream, we sleep and you dream, you still continue the same thing. And then we say, well, how come we're suffering? Right? Maybe because the one I fell in love with loves somebody else. Doesn't love me. If he just loved me, everything would be fine. Then you feel rejected, worthless. You go to a therapist, you work in your history, how your mother didn't want you. But how about if the problem is not because that man didn't love you, but because things are just not like that? There's no man in you really the way you think of them. See? I mean, men and women do exist, but not necessarily the way we think of them. Maybe they exist as the fingers of the hand. I sometimes call people God fingers. Have you heard the expression God finger? Everybody, if you imagine you are a finger, like if the finger belongs to the hand belongs to the body. Now the finger believes it exists on its own. As an individual, it has its own self and will and volition. And it's going to behave that way. Don't you think it's created a lot of trouble? First to itself and then to the rest of the body. I mean, imagine the havoc that will create. And imagine this finger will go to another finger as a therapist. I have this problem. This finger doesn't love me. I want to love this finger. Right? I mean, this therapist might think, yes, I could see this finger doesn't love you. We'll have to find you one of those. But if this finger is wide, they realize, oh, I'm not really. This is a hand. See, a hand. You're not a finger, really. You don't walk around by yourself. You're part of a larger thing. And if you realize you're part of a larger thing, you realize that the connecting fabric, the connecting substance that unites everything is love. And then you realize, what does it mean that person doesn't love me? We're all made out of love anyway. Two fingers of love, because hand is love. So as you see, emotional problems, the way we look at them, come basically from a fundamental wrongness, a fundamental wrong perspective of what about ourselves, about reality, about life, about all of that. And it is the correction of that perspective that could bring in the resolution. You see? Not an easy thing because, For years and years, we've believed we're separate fingers. See? To make that connection again is not easy. So that sort of sets the stage of what we're about, what we're trying to do, to be able to participate in the mystery of existence. But existence is really much more mysterious than we think. That by believing we know what it is, we stop it. We make it stand, and we fix it in a certain mold. And that way, it's old. It's no more new. It's no more fresh. It doesn't have the wonder and the mystery in it. And that the idea here is to be able to let go of that fixation, of that specific rigid way of experiencing and seeing things, to allow reality, to allow ourselves to unfold and change and manifest all the richness and the variety in it. And that our way really to this world of wonder, the world of mystery, the world of magic and beauty, the way to it is who we are. So if you know yourself, that self is the entry, see, the door into that mystery. In fact, it is the expression of that mystery. The most perfect expression, I think, of the mystery that exists, that is the human being. Because the human being can experience that mystery in its totality. Human being has the potential not just to perceive and experience and see all that exists, but to be it and live it. That we don't have to, that human being, although we start knowing ourselves from child as an individual who grows and develops, and mostly we think of ourselves as the body, that could go deeper by knowing what that is, by really truthfully and honestly and affectionately going about knowing it, investigating. We realize that in time, if we go into it, is just at the beginning of the finger that becomes the hand, that becomes the body, and the body, the totality of the universe, all of it. And that we realize that the universe isn't inanimate, it's completely animate. It's living and breathing, it's made out of consciousness, made out of beingness, made out of love. And that the way to know it is not by looking at rocks, but looking at ourselves. That's why I say look inward. What is inward is not inside your body. Inward into your nature. Inward meaning to the deeper nature of what you happen to be at any moment. So, whoso knoweth himself knows the truth. If you know yourself, you will get to know the truth in its totality, in its various manifestations. And we realize that this world we see, the physical universe, is the outermost expression of a reality that is multi-leveled, multifaceted. That the rocks you see, those black volcanic rocks, really that within them it looks pink. And within the pink, it looks bright yellow. And in the bright yellow, there is a living, roaring purple. And within the living, roaring purple, there is within it a mysterious light that is luminous. But usually you can't see that by looking at the rocks. You have to look at the sensory organ itself, the human being. So that's what we want to do, to really participate, to see that reality, experience it, participate it, live it. Because that is our inheritance. That's our inheritance. See? So, How to go about it, though? So what is the method, the Dayan approach? You say, whoso knows himself. If you know yourself, you really, really get to know exactly what you are. Or the more exactly you know who you are, the more you delve into the mystery, the more you get into it, the more you see things you never imagined, you never conceived of, you never seen. Things that your mother never mentioned. Really, things that your father never conceived of. You see? And the more you go, the more things keep emerging. And after a while, you realize that your body is really very light. At the beginning, everybody said their body is heavy, and they get in some inner states. They seem to be delicate and soft, when the body sort of thick. In time, when you start experiencing it, you realize your body is really very light. The way you experience yourself is much more substantial than the body. That who you are is really much a realer thing. Just the way a relationship between a rock and a feather. That you are more like a rock and the body is like a little feather over it. That who you are, your very conscious, your very beingness is much more real, much more substantial, much more there, much more indestructible than the body that we usually think is the biggest, most ultimate, most substantial reality. See? Inner work does not lead you to subtler things in the sense they're less substantial things. For a while it is, as you're experiencing the energies of the body. But when you go to the realm of consciousness and being, you realize that consciousness is something much more substantial, much more real than the body. That the body ultimately is an idea, a thought, created by that immense beingness. So I'll keep giving you a little example here and there what I mean by mystery and wonder. So imagine living your life like that. You see? Imagine it, living your life in a wonder. You don't know what's going to happen next. I don't mean, whether you're going to be rejected or loved. I mean, you don't know you'll be walking either through the door, whether you'll exist or not. Whether you'll exist as a two-legged being or as a ball of light or as a flying diamond. You haven't got the vaguest idea what's going to happen next. And as you walk in the door, you say, well, I'm either going to be a two-legged being, a ball of light, or a flying diamond. By the time you cross the door, you realize yourself, you are a rolling planet. See? Mysteries that could arise are amazing. What's in consciousness? What is it that's really in the depths of the human being, the depth of the human soul? And if we really try to stick to systems and disciplines and practices and perspective that want to correct the universe, correct our life from the small perspective, that's in some sense not only endless, but it's like you're taking a little piece from this whole universe and trying to solve the whole of the universe by staying from this little piece in it. And you'll stay there, regardless how good you make it, it will stay there. And you will miss the mystery and the wonder and the magic of existence. See, the magic of existence that things like romantic relationship or fame in society are nothing compared to the very little things. They're not the true mature pleasures and delights of the human being. See? They're not important, those things. They are important. It needs to happen. Everybody needs to find love in their life and be able to work and support themselves and all of that, but so that you'll experience what is real, not for their own. They are supports. They support for the physical part of us, the emotional part of us, so that we could rest and be quiet and allow ourselves to be and allow the mysteries to bubble up, to emerge, to manifest. So whoso knows himself, how do we go about knowing ourselves? You see, what is yourself will depend on the level or the dimension from which your mind operates. Like, what is you? What is the self? what is the soul, what is the essence, changes according to your level of to your capacity to perceive, how sensitive you are, how sensitive is this human organ of perception. Like this organ of perception goes through transformation, which is some kind of transubstantiation, which is some kind of a refinement and development. It's not like your body gets subtle, you feel your body more and more and more, and becomes, you could feel more the nuances in you. That happens at the beginning as you're dealing with the physical realm. But then after a while, you start experiencing other things. Of course, one of the main contribution of modern Western psychology that made us see then there is the realm of emotions, for instance. That's a very important thing to deal with. So that's a whole another dimension. So if you go from just the mundane physical level, which really exists only in its own level but not at deeper levels, you go to more emotions and feelings and interaction with people. That becomes important to experience and know and realize and be able to operate from that perspective. Be able to have an emotional relationship with another human being in a genuine, loving way, with openness, with pleasure, mutual respect. You're able to enjoy and value work and creativity and friendships and things like that. But then there are other dimensions that will start manifesting the moment we complete that. The moment that level of us is somewhat established on its own, start opening up. Like whenever the self or the soul is actualized in a certain dimension, it becomes relaxed in it, settled, somewhat contented. And that settledness, that contentment, that peacefulness is the entry door, or allows what is deeper still to start bubbling up, to start arising. And then you realize when you have established a certain dimension of existence, certain aspect of you as being a human being, if you just stay with it, but allow your mind to be open, not to say that's it, that's the final thing, to say that's good, I like it, it's wonderful, I can enjoy it, it goes on forever, it's fine, but God knows what's going to happen tomorrow. If you stay with that attitude, really, if you don't close it, you don't close the book, naturally the deeper level will start emerging. And then you might be, for instance, lying in bed with your lover. You just made love and you're relaxed, feeling good, and then you look at your lover and you see, you look at her and you see, oh, where did you get all these pearls around your head? She says, what pearls? Oh, there's a whole crown on your head, pearls around you, diamonds. You look like a queen. She said, oh, I do feel like a queen. And how about you? Oh, wow, I do feel different. It feels like a sense of majesty. Right? You feel like a king, and you realize you have purple robes, crown with gold and silver, and you realize just by being relaxed, by being contented in that moment, your beingness has manifested another dimension, another facet of experiencing itself. You see, that you didn't even know, you weren't even looking for it. In fact, it's good not to look for it. If you were looking for it, you probably won't get it. But the satisfaction, the contentment, the settledness, and a certain manifestation allows sort of the tensions in your being, in your mind to sort of relax. And as the tension relax and let go, the deeper thing naturally, organically sort of bubbles up, and it destroys the surface sort of. It's like annihilates it somehow, and then a new emergence comes out. Just like how a butterfly comes out, the new things come out like a new skin, and you experience yourself, in a way that maybe you never experienced before. And then you say, oh, we are really of royal descent. That's why some of the stories say the human being is royal born. We come from royalty. See? Because the royalty is the essence itself, the beingness itself, the nature of the soul, the nature of the self, has a royal quality, has a pure blood to it. You see, it has a preciousness. See, that reminds you, brings the quality of gold and silver and pearl and diamond and silk, and that's the dimension. Then the human dimension of essence starts emerging. What I call the personal dimension of essence, where a human being experiences himself as a prince or a princess, king or queen. That's one of the ways of experiencing it. It doesn't have to be that, but that's one of the possibilities. See? That is the realm, in some of the tradition they call the realm of power, or the realm of individual souls. And we realize that the beginning, what we started with, the self, what we call the ego, right? That is restricted, has ideas about what it is. As it lets go, its very substance unfolds, just like a flower opens up. This ego itself unfolds. The ego doesn't die, it just transforms to something else. You see? The ego is nothing but the surface part of the soul, surface part of the being, the true being. You see? And that, I think, there is a lot of confusion, in spiritual literature, where you kill the ego, slay the ego, and all that. You can't kill the ego. Nothing is there, that's ego. The ego is nothing but taking your being, your soul, your psyche, yourself, and fixing it in a certain way. That's it. That fixation, that rigidity that makes it calcified, that makes it as if you got, some kind of plaster on you that got dry. And you have to move within that. That's what's called if that softens and dissolves, it starts from within its very self, comes out the essence and the being. And then, what happens after that? You might be sitting in the cafe, sipping your cafe au lait in one of those French cafes in Berkeley. And you'd be, having a good time with the caffeine rush and all of that. Suddenly you experience yourself as an infinite, boundless, emerald green, subtle light. Right? Suddenly you're all subtle, emerald green light. And whoever passes in front of you, you can't help but see the pain and hurt in your heart just full of kindness and compassion, and you just want to do whatever you can to help and alleviate their difficulties. That will be the emergence of one of the aspects, which is compassion. It manifests that way. But as you see, it's quite a mystery, quite an amazing thing. You see, you were this person who just made love. Now you're a subtle, intelligent green light, emerald light. You could be that. Of course, somebody comes and looks at you and says, why are you looking at me like that? And suddenly you remember, your mommy who told you, don't look at me like that when I'm in the bathroom. Put on your clothes again. The green light is gone and you're sitting there, a little sulking kid. But you think, terrible, my ego came back. No, it's not. It's just a mysterious reality, just transformed. Imagine a radiant, limitless light suddenly became a little kid sitting there sulking and afraid of their mommy. Isn't that amazing? How can that be? You see? That's what I mean. He's looking at you, kid. You see? There is no judgment, has to be one word. It's all nice, all one. The whole thing is just a mysterious something. It's changing all the time. You see? But most of us will want to believe, no. That's not how things are. How things are is me. I get 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, I'm talking. Sometimes I have an experience of light. Just like, what's his name? Zhuangzi saying, am I a butterfly dreaming I'm Zhuangzi, or am I Zhuangzi dreaming I'm a butterfly? How can you tell? If in that moment you were light, you were light. Now you're a body, you're a body. You see? But, since our mother and father and everybody we talked to for the last 30 years said, you are that person with such and such a name, and you have your IDs, and I can prove it to you, you have to say that. You have to say, come back to it. I said, no, this is the basic me. Let me hold it back, put it together, zip myself down, and be in person again. Otherwise, who's going to do everything tomorrow? Right? That's the fear. Like if I stay this nice, wonderful light or being a queen, who's going to clean the house tomorrow? That's called, but that you see that happens because a person has not completely established the aspect of the green emerald compassion, because the compassion center here, which manifests in that subtle aspect of emerald compassion, has to do with trust. It means you still don't trust in the reality that things will be taken care of. Anyway, that when cleaning time comes, magically and without knowing, suddenly you'll become this person with a broom. And you'll be walking around, wiping the dust. It will happen. It never fails. It always happens. You see? Just, you don't have to believe every second that you have to be a person who can hold a broom. For you tomorrow to be able to carry a broom. You'll be able to carry a broom tomorrow, even if right now you think of yourself as the universe. Even if right now you think of yourself as a rolling, thundering planet. You'll be able to carry a broom, I promise you. But these are some of the barriers that arise, you see. If I am not what I think I am, who's going to drive my car? You see, maybe I'll become like Rajneesh, going off the pavement here and there. So the idea is the basic trust, which something will have to be worked with, right? To work with, you have to actually explore your relationship with your parents, with your, early childhood, and see how you stop trusting nature, reality, who you are, because you couldn't trust maybe your environment. That's something that could be worked through, could be worked on, so that the trust will be established, so that you could relax, you could let be, and things will happen. They'll be taken care of. That to trust that the human being has all the potentials, all the capacity to take care of the various situations. And if worst comes to worst, well, you're going to die. So, you'll die. What's the big deal? If you die, you become something else. Instead of somebody who walks around with 2 legs, God knows what you will be. Brilliant light. Or an infinite universe. Or whatever your religion happens to be, believe in souls or spirits or whatever, maybe you'll become one of those. That there is no experience that has to be looked at as a bad thing that should be avoided, and we should, try to sort of keep ourselves together in some kind of way, so that such things, such and such, don't happen, so we don't die. We're all going to die. We know that. No? We're all going to die. At least the way we think of ourselves has an end, has a beginning, has an end. And I think just that fact by itself is worthy of utmost contemplation. You ever think about it? Every once in a while I sit at night, before I fall asleep, I say, I'm going to die. What does that mean? Me sitting here, sitting in my bed, thinking about all those things, one of those days it'll be gone? What does that mean? I wonder how will that be like? It's very hard to conceive of. What does it mean? Like one of those days you stop walking, stop thinking, stop talking to people. Stop going to the groceries. Not going to go anywhere. Something else really was going to happen. Completely something else. I think if we just contemplate that in a very serious way, that will allow us to start contemplating who we are, start knowing who we are. What is so? To really answer the mystery of what is death, you have to answer the mystery of who you are. What is it that is you? Because if you think yourself as this body, this biological, physical organism that breathes oxygen and eats all kind of stuff, and that's it, understand that you'll think that will die and the atoms will go back to the earth, and that's it. But if you're a little bit intelligent, you realize you have things that are not explained by that. How can this body, this physical thing, have dreams at night? Dreams that not only dreams, but they look as real as this reality. You think of it. It's another mysterious thing. When you're dreaming at night, and you're walking in your dream, talking to people, it's just like it's as real. You feel things, you sense things, everything is real, it's the same as now. Well, how can that happen? So something in our minds, someone could create a reality out of nothing. You're sleeping and people come to you over there. You're in bed, you're doing nothing. But in your own experience, the whole universe, you've created just like this universe. Just like this one, exactly. Flesh, blood, and somebody hits you, you hurt. Probably have to go to the hospital. The same thing happens in dreams. But, people, when they wake up, they say, oh, that was just a dream. This is the real thing. How do we know? If we have the capacity to create a dream and live in a dream, and in the dream everything feels real, we have the capacity to create what we're doing right now. Maybe we're creating it, just as we create our dreams in sleep. In fact, that is one of the perceptions that a person can see at the deeper levels of consciousness. You realize all of this is a manifestation of your mind. That is another one of the mysteries. It's an amazing kind of mystery. Like this whole universe is actually created from the very stuff of your consciousness. So, there is a mystery of existence, the participation in the mystery of the existence, and the way to that participation through the knowing of who you are. And the knowing of who you are to start from where you are, and to learn to be as open and as open-minded, as relaxed, and as curious, to what you could be, to the mystery of who you are as you can. And if that happens, that allows the unfoldment, the emergence of your being in its various, facets and dimensions. But how does saying that is still a little vague, and as we know, it's not that easy. So I want to talk a little bit about the work we do. What are the basic qualities of it? What are the basic attitude that allows that process to happen? So that's when Bogart comes in. Right? He's looking at you, kids. First of all, there is the looking, the investigation, right? But remember, I didn't say it's not a scientific way of looking at things. It's scientific in the sense you really want to know what you're looking at. You really want to know and know it as accurately, as exactly as possible. But you're going about it with the eyes of the lover, right? Bogart wasn't saying, here's looking at you, kid. He wasn't, having a microscope and looking at things. He was, being really appreciative. Looking at her face and seeing the beauty of it and his love, he's looking at you and he's celebrating, right? that communion, that experience of being with a being that he appreciates and loves. Right? So that is one of the primary or the main or the basic attitude, is the attitude of appreciation, attitude of love, attitude of tenderness, affection. So when you want to look at yourself, it's important to do it that way. You're not looking at your ego to get rid of it. So if you're looking at your ego to get rid of it, it's going to hide. Ego experiences itself as a little kid. If you say, let's look for it to slay it, what's the kid going to do? It's not going to say, here I am. I'm not going to do that. God, this guy's going to kill me. Where is the best place I could hide? So that's really an important thing, you see. That's attitude of some kind of appreciation, some kind of love. That's you want to know yourself not because you want something out of it, not because you want to solve your problems, not because you want to get rid of certain part of yourself, but because you're really interested. When you're really with a lover, you want to know about them, it's not because you want to decide, should I marry them or not? Right? If you're with your lover in the date and you're asking them one question after the other. How old are you? 39. 37. Good pass. How many kids have you had? Right? That's not the attitude of love, you see. That your lover, you really want to know because you like them. You just want to know about them. It's not because you think of marrying them. You haven't got the vaguest idea what's going to happen the next moment. This very moment is wonderful. It's nice, and I like knowing more. Tell me more. What are you? How are you? What are you all about? You see? If you approach yourself with that attitude, like there's this mysterious something, being, what, God knows what, and you want to go about because it's curious. See? Something curious, something see. I mean, people told you all kinds of things about it, but you know that something's still left, you know. And you want to go about it, really investigate in as scientific a way as possible, in a sense, as effective a way as possible, but not in the cold scientific way. You wanted to go with affection, with tenderness, with compassion, with true appreciation and value of the being you're confronting. Whatever you call it, ego or soul or self or body, it doesn't matter. So that's one basic thing in the diamond approach, is to go about it in terms of loving the truth for its own sake. You want to find out the truth about who you are, not because you want something out of it, not because you want to be enlightened, not because you want to be happier in your life, not because you want to be more successful, this or that, but because you really love it. You like finding out. When you're really interested in something, right? In a person or an activity or a place, you want to go about it, you lose yourself in some sense. You're not self-centered. You're going about it out of love, out of appreciation, out of an interest. See? That quality, that attitude is of paramount importance in terms of exploring ourselves. Otherwise, the beingness will not unfold if we don't have that. If you go about it from a therapeutic perspective, purely therapeutic perspective, or purely from a scientific perspective, you know, the unfold will not happen. There will be just rearrangements of parts, basically. But for the unfoldment to happen, it's more like that child, that essence child within us, that part of us that is vulnerable and delicate and pure and innocent, but also scared. For that part to come out, is feel, okay, I'm going to come out and appear and let myself be there. And when that come out and let itself be there, it just unfolds, like one peel falls after that, and all its wonder comes out. But there has to be that lovingness, that tenderness, that sweetness. So we go about the investigation to know ourselves with that attitude, with that love. And of course, a lot of time we don't have it. We don't have that. You know, you come, person comes to me in my session, I hate myself. Will you help me? And I tell them, will you help me? I want to get rid of this trouble. And my job then is to sort of turn them around, to start being a little softer about themselves, a little more compassionate, more loving. I mean, I hate myself. My life is terrible. I want to change it. From that attitude, only more hatred will be generated. So if we could generate or develop or learn to free the heart, the loving heart, because the investigation of the truth, to find out the truth about yourself, reality, is a heart concern. It's a concern of the heart. It shouldn't come from the mind. It should come from the heart. Your heart has to be interested, an interest out of true consideration, true love, true appreciation. You want to know because you are really interested to know, but not for an end in sight, not for an outcome. That's one part. The second part, not enough that you love, you have that loving attitude about yourself, about finding yourself. There has to be some kind of curiosity. You have to be some kind of, develop the sense of light-hearted curiosity. So that's another wing of the approach, is to go about it not by just appreciating reality, but being curious about it. You not only looking at it lovingly, but you want to find out about it. You're curious to find out all kind of things about it. It's not only you're looking at the face of the lovers, oh, pretty, I love you, wonderful. No, you want to find out more. You want to undress the lover, find out more what's there, what's here, touch there. If you want to really investigate, and you're not investigating because you want to get something out of it, you want to investigate, you're really curious. What makes you tick, I wonder? How come your shoulder's different from my shoulder? Soft, it's different from mine. It's not nice. Spent half an hour there. See, it's a love affair that has not only love, but an openness of heart in terms of curiosity. You're wanting to find out. You're wanting to really get into it, delve into it. And I think that's one. I mean, I'm using the analogy of love, making love, lover, because I think that's basically what's it about. Making love. What's it about? After it's not just, having a discharge and that's it, and go about it. It's a way of knowing each other. It's a way of investigating and knowing in some kind of intimate way, some kind of contact that just doesn't make you feel, oh, contact, now I could go to sleep, but make you really know the other person, something about their exquisiteness, uniqueness, the variations, and different kind of things about them. And it's just like the heart has that childlike quality, you see. And that childlike quality manifests as curiosity, which we see children have, right? Children want to know about everything. What's this, mommy? What's that? What's that? Why is this? Why is that? That attitude has to be there. You don't leave any stone unturned. But not from the scientific mind, okay, we have to look. Well, I don't know if we could make this tank from these two things. It's not from that. It's more like, oh, that's something. See? There is joy and wonder in every moment of discovery. See? And if you're really getting into it, it's like the first time. Just for a child, it's like everything is the first time. Everything you want, but you do that about yourself. See? And the interesting thing, the self, of who we are, is such an infinite richness. If we allow ourselves to go through that investigation, that loving and curious investigation, that becomes life. Life is nothing but the unfoldment of who we are. Life is not going to school, then getting a job, married, going through middle-age crisis, then getting old, getting sick. That's not life. Life is the unfoldment of the richness that is a human being. And that unfoldment, that flow, that richness is life. See, but if already at the beginning, at age 22, whatever, when you graduate, said, that's who I am. Like this, that's who I am. Now I'm going to get this job and do this and do that. And you want that person that you take yourself to be, to go through life. You're already dead. You already stopped. So as you see, investigating who you are, doing the work, is nothing but the true process of living. And it's endless. What you could discover, what you could experience, what you could feel, the kind of thing that happens. And don't imagine that you have all these wonderful inner experiences, but it's not relevant to your life. It's not like that. Like that experience, at some point of it, you might have all kind of inner experiences. There'll come a time and you realize, oh, I have these experiences. But when somehow I go to the grocers, as if I never learned anything for the past 5 years or so. That becomes another, oh, really? How come? That's strange. I sit and meditate, and I disappear. I wake up, wonderful. But then I go to the grocery store, or I go to the movies, I'm the same clunky old guy. What happened? That's called post-meditative experience. And usually the traditions, they say the meditative experience, the post-meditative, they should come closer to each other. But the way I look at it, that's just another investigation. How come? How come that doesn't happen? How come when I'm walking through the grocery door, I don't experience myself as a rolling planet? Never. I'm always a two-legged being. How come I'm a rolling planet only when I come out of my teacher's office? It must be my teacher. He's got Mr. If it wasn't for him, but then I think that's another thing to be investigated. If you really investigate, and then you realize, oh, isn't that something? For me, it took me 3 years investigating that. And then I realized that there's something, an aspect of being aware of experiencing oneself that I never thought of, I didn't even see. That I'm not only a body that walks around, I'm not only a beingness, infinite, I'm not just a loving consciousness of one form or another, but also I can experience myself as an organism of consciousness. That I am not only a body that's inhabited by some kind of an impersonal consciousness, but I am actually a living organism, a living presence that moves, that does, that feels, that thinks. And the body, the way I see it, is only the external sheath or external manifestation of that organism. And that organism, for it to really function, to go through the grocery doors and pick the oranges and the radishes and all of that, for that to happen, right? That organism will have to be understood and integrated and realized. See, that I could function in this world, in this physical universe, not as a body, but as a body of consciousness. But that body of consciousness is sort of the real thing behind what we call ego or personality. But it is something much subtler, much deeper. And that it needs all the various realizations of essence and being and consciousness and emptiness for it to start operating. Like you realize then you could actually think for the first time. Like, thinking is not a haphazard passing of thoughts that you have no control of, that you could actually think intentionally, effectively, with a certain direction, with a smoothness, with a flow, that you could think, that your mind is empty, completely void, completely absence. And from that absence, from that absolute voidness, there emerges thoughts. And that those thoughts are intentional, real mentations. That not only you could think, you could actually feel. And you realize the feeling you felt before were the reactions from the past. Pseudo-feeling. But now, as this human organism of consciousness, you could actually feel. Like you could be a loving organism, a loving human being. Not only you could exist as love, but love is integrated into the human being, so now you are a loving human being in a truly loving way, in the sense that your own very substance could flow as love. That you could feel in various ways. You could feel sad, you could feel concerned. Right? But the feeling has to do with the now. It is the complete response to what is happening now from who you are at this very moment, not from all the history that happened in the past. And then you realize that you could do, you could move, that you really could move your hand. Like before that, you didn't really move your hand. Your hand sort of was an automatic kind of mechanical move. If you really move your hand slowly, you realize that. You realize it's jerking. Messages go from the hand to the brain, and there's a jerky movement. We don't see it because it's fast, but you're not really moving it. It's a mechanical thing. But when that human consciousness is realized, you realize you could actually move. You could actually do. And because you could move, you could go through the store. But that, you see, but if you didn't go about it with openness, with curiosity, with wanting to investigate in a loving way, you wouldn't see a part like that. That allows you to be actually a human being the way everybody wants to be, but in a real way. So as you see, every problem that arises is an indication of a part of us that we still don't know. That is one of the premises of the Diamond approach. Every time you have a problem, it's only indicated there's a part of you, or part of the reality you don't understand, you don't see, you have not integrated. And because of that, it is a sign. It is an entryway to investigate, to go about it with the curiosity, with some kind of affection, to find out what is it, how come it is like that. Like a part of you is missing. Like you realize, some problem here. If you really find out about it, you realize there's a part of you is not there, it's missing. Like there's a hole in your beingness, in your consciousness, instead of that part that's supposed to be there. If you go about investigate it with the sincerity, with truthfulness, with the curiosity, that part will start emerging, start finding out. And you realize your love affair will just deepen and increase. You're not necessarily the resolution will not be a solution for your problem, but a realization of part of who you are. And the problem sort of fades away in some kind of way. So anyway, there is some kind of love, loving truth for its own sake. That's what I mean, for its own sake. You want to love it because you want to know it because you love it, you like it, not because you want something out of it. See, like, that's why I don't like it when somebody says, I'm going to pray to God so God will forgive me and save me. For me, that's not the true attitude. Why will God forgive you and save you? The only thing you should ask, if you ask anything God, is God, why don't you just do whatever you want to do? Let me find out what it is. I just want to see what you do, God. Whatever you want to do with me is fine. I just know I'm really interested in participating. That's a true religious attitude. But to pray, God, I'm really miserable. My wife left me. Will you give me another wife? All that kind of stuff. Or God, why don't you enlighten me and send me an angel? Do this to me. I mean, you're making like a business deal with God. And that's not a love affair. See? The way to go about the truth is more like a love affair. But there's a place of a scientific approach to it, in the sense there can be precision, there can be exactness, there can be definiteness. You see? About the kind of, because if you really want to investigate, if you truly love the truth, you want to know it exactly as it is. And if you want to know it exactly as it is, you have to cut away the bullshit. You have to get away all the extra stuff. You have to be exact, precise. Like right now, for what am I experiencing myself? I know exactly. Well, I'm sort of feeling depressed today. It's not enough. It doesn't do it. If you're really curious, what does it mean, depressed? Heavy? Sad? What does it mean? What kind of temperature? Where do I feel it? What does it make me see? What does it make me look at my life? You have to really go about it from a scientific point of view, but there is, within that scientific approach, a lovingness, a tenderness, and an appreciation. And I think a real scientist will go about their science that way anyway. So you have the scientific approach and the artistic approach mixed as well. That's what it means to unify the two sides of the brain. See? To really go about doing, the work from perspective of truth, you have to unify the two sides of the brain. You have to be rational and intuitive at the same time. See? So there's loving truth for its own sake, where we'll create some kind of a sincerity, some kind of humility, some kind of honesty about who we are, what we are. Do I happen to be angry but pretending I'm loving? Right? Do I happen to be wanting something from the person but I'm pretending I'm giving them something? You have to be ruthlessly honest here. Out of loving the truth, out of loving who you are, out of loving the other. To really sort of use your will to its utmost precision to say, no, I want to see exactly why am I doing this? What's it about? See? So as you see, it becomes very grounded, down to earth, precise, scientific way of looking at it. If you're really, truly interested in investigating truth, it's not like I want to find out the truth. Oh, good, now, I'm going to just, open myself to the grace and sit there. Well, I mean, that's part of what's needed, but that's not exact yet. See? Your interest has to be more wholehearted that you want to put into it something. You want to put into it care, commitment, interest, effort, whatever it takes. And to really grapple with it, whatever it is. Whether it feels painful, feels good, doesn't matter. Like the one stumbling, one of the biggest blocks in working on oneself and life in general is that if it gets terrible, bad, or painful, we want to sort of not feel it, not deal with it, get rid of it. If it's pleasurable, we want to enjoy it and have a good time with it, but we don't necessarily want to investigate it. See? Loving truth for its own sake, you don't have either of those attitudes. Or these attitudes, there's something bigger than them. It's painful, it's fun, but you still want to invest. What's the outcome? It's painful. What does that mean? What's it a sign of? Where is it going to lead me? What does it mean about who I am? What does it mean about this universe? Like people for us to complain a lot. This world is full of suffering. And nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. Yes, that's how it looks. But what are you going to do? Feel helpless? Or are you going to try to be messianic? And how about finding out, what does that mean? When I say that the world is full of suffering, well, what's that? Is it really full of suffering? What kind of suffering? What the suffering is about? So as you see, to really know yourself, to engage in that path, whoso knoweth himself. You have to have the attitude of, he's looking at you, kid. If it's sanctimonious, it's very difficult to do. It has to be sort of a love affair. And that if you go about it with true sincerity, which is really appreciation of the truth, and with a lively, playful curiosity, that will allow our mind sort of to open. Curiosity already indicates you are accepting there's something you don't know. That is one of the requirements. If you're investigating something, you have to, first of all, go about it with ignorance, saying, I don't really know what this about. I don't know what this about. Why is it like that? What is it? See, if you don't allow your mind to be open like that, you can't be truly curious. So you have to start from a place of not knowing, which is not an easy thing for us to do. Most of the time, we start with assuming that we know this and know this. How about just, I don't know what it is. You're feeling something, experiencing something, and you go about it with, like a little kid. You haven't seen it before. What is it? What's it about? To not know, to forget all what you know about it. If you do that, that already opens, you see, the centers in the head, the centers of perception. Because the center of perception and understanding blocked by the belief that you know something when you don't know it. As simply as that. If you believe you see things as they are, or if you believe you know things as they are, right away those blocked, because you take an illusion to be a reality. So the way to do it is to always be ignorant. See? Why do you need to know anyway? I mean, why do you feel you have to? Why do you need to feel that you already know all the time? What's so wonderful about that? I think the transition from not knowing to knowing is a much more wonderful thing than the feeling of I know. Because the feeling of I know is not a discovery. Whatever you know, you might know God. God comes and sits in front of you and says, here I am. Look at me. So, oh, good, that's God. It's exciting. And tomorrow you say, oh, I know what God is. 3 days later, it's an old memory, old stuff. No good. It loses power, it loses beauty, it loses aesthetics. But the discovery is that, God sitting there saying, oh, good, don't go away, let me find out more. The process of discovery itself has joy. That's where happiness comes in life. So we want to be happy. My experience, that's where happiness comes from. True happiness, true joy, is of discovering the new, the freshness of who we are, what other people are, what reality is, what the truth is. You see? Continual, never ceasing process of emerging, of happening, of appearing, manifesting. At the beginning, it might be, difficult or painful, because what arises is our usual personal unconscious, which has all the memories and the hurts and the pains and the fears the reason why we blocked all that stuff. But that's sort of the price we have to pay for a few years. To be willing to go through the swamps. But what helps us to go through it is that curiosity that is based on truth. And as you see, to have that curiosity based on truth, it requires an openness in the mind, a sense of awareness, a presence without needing to believe you already know, which means you have to deal with your pride and things like that. And that allows curiosity, but then you realize for that you need to have some kind of strength to keep going, because sometimes things are difficult. And that will then bring about the moment you say, well, but I'm really weak, I can't do it, it's too much for me. And then you say, well, it's hopeless. But then, if you're really curious, oh, I'm feeling weak. That I can't do it because I'm feeling weak. Oh, let me see, what does this weakness feel like? It feels like my right side is shriveled up, small. can't raise my hand, weak, can't do it. They start, getting images of yourself as little and small, can't do. You had all these images when you were a kid, you were too helpless and all that stuff. But you let it happen, and then what is this weakness? How come do I feel weak? So what? I was a little kid. Why do I feel weak now? See? To ask that question, the aspect of intelligence is functioning in your brain. See, these are very intelligent questions to ask, see, which is already one aspect of being is functioning. If you really do that, you're exercising your intelligence. See, so what is it? Why am I weak? What's this weakness? You realize the weakness. Oh, weakness. You feel the state of weakness and say, I'm curious about it. If you're curious about it, you don't try to block it. If you're really curious about it and you're going about it from a perspective of interest and through curiosity, you want to know what it is. To know what it is, you have to allow it to be just there as it is. And to stay there as it is means you have to be objective about it. That's what objectivity means. Objectivity doesn't mean being cold. Objectivity means not laying your tribs in it. Letting things be the way they are. That's objectivity. Sometimes people, they think to be objective means you're being cold and feeling. It doesn't mean any of that. It means you're really going about it with true love. That you really know what it is. If you really want to know something what it is, you have to be objective about it, because it means you're not going to put on it your preconception and idea, what you learned in the past. You just let it be as it is, like weakness. What is that? And to see in the process of that, you have to eliminate your associations to it, your reactions to it, what you believe about it. Oh, the man said, well, weak meaning I'm not a man, I'm not masculine, or this and that. See, that's what your mind says. Let's find out what is this weakness is. If you really go about that way, in time, that will bring in the whole of weakness, and then that will bring in the aspect of strength. And suddenly the strengths come out, and you are this raging fire. Can do it, sure. And you go on doing it, and you're excited, right? And you're curious about the whole thing. And after a while, you walk in the street, you realize, your knees hurting. Go to a chiropractor. Practice, works with it. The next week, another knee goes out. Chiropractor fixes it. After a few days, your sacrum is not right. Chiropractors don't work. I'll go to an acupuncturist. Because acupuncturist balances your meridian, your energy, and feel nice for a week. The next day, after a week, your hip is out. And if you're intelligent, if you're smart, you realize, what's this business? One time, one knee, the other knees, my sacrum. What's this? Am I getting old? I'm only 35. And if you're really investigating, if you're really sensing, experiencing yourself, trying to be as much, and you walk on, you realize at some point that you exist from here up, and that's it. You got no legs. What happened to my legs? No wonder my legs are going out. I haven't got them. I've been walking in something that actually I don't feel. You realize your lower part, your support is gone. That's one of the ways of experiencing that your will is not there. See, you have the strength, you go. After a while, like you can't go. There's resistances, there are barriers, difficulties. You haven't got what it takes to continue, right? To persist. The power of persistence isn't there. And you realize the power of persistence isn't, after a while, manifests as your lower parts of disappears, gets mushy, as if your bones get soft, leathery, cartilage-like, wobbly. All those kind of ways people experience the absence of the actual sense of will. And then if you're really curious about it, you say, well, what's this about? What do you mean my leg feels like cartilage? I have bones. But it does feel like cartilage, as if I can't walk right. And if you're not sort of interested in knowing the truth, you want to go to a chiropractor, this and that, and that's okay if you're hurting. But they're not going to do it. You have to be interested. You have to be able to find out, what is this phenomena? Why is it happening? If you really stay with it, you realize that after a while there's a part of you missing, as simply as that. Has nothing to do with your knees and your sacrum or any of that. So what happened really is the structure, which is it's called the psychic structure, which manifests in the body as part of the armor in the body around the pelvis and the leg, has been shaken, has been sort of somewhat destroyed because of the experiences, of new experiences. So that armor, that tension pattern, worked as a support for your sense of identity. But that sense of identity is changing, and its support is starting to shift. And you need to go to a deeper support. And if you're really curious about it, you start after a while, when you allow yourself to say, well, I have no will, I feel so castrated, haven't got it, I can't really move. But if you stay with it, not resist it, and gently and compassionately and lovingly really investigate it, and to be personally interested in it, in yourself, in your own experience. See? And you already have the strength and the courage. See, after a while you realize a certain aspect, emerges. And emerges, and suddenly your legs are solid, like mountains. Mountain here, another mountain there. Nothing will stop me. I'll just go. Problems come, you go this way and that way. Go. Just like the walker. Remember the walker in Star Wars? That's how aspect of will manifests as a solidity and immensity, a support for that process of being, which is part of ourselves. You see? But before that, we never had even the vaguest idea there's anything like that. You didn't know that you experience yourself as a mountain. Right? You thought, well, my legs, maybe I'm getting old, and my chi is not flowing right, probably my kidney meridian. And all that's true. Probably your kidney meridian is out because your will is gone. But to correct the kidney meridian will be a temporary thing, because there's something deeper, which is a will aspect of being that allows you to move solidly from a deep level. That's there. It's there. Not only the kidney meridian, all kind of other meridian will go on top. See, we're not saying those things, the chiropractor are not used. They're good. They do their things, but they don't do everything. They have their way of working, their area of work, of usefulness. But there are other deeper areas, and you say where you have to take more responsibility. See? You have to, which is your own more spiritual practice, your inner real practice, what has to happen. And then, if you got those, you see, you got the will, you got the strength, you got the joy, you see, you got the openness of mind, you see. Then in time, you start realizing, you got all these, you're working yourself. After a while, you're walking around and you see, well, but I'm not a person, so I'm not an entity, like a nobody. You start experiencing, well, I can't make personal contact with anybody. You walk around, I feel like I'm an automaton. Yes, I am loving, I'm compassionate, but it's like, everybody is a subject of sort, an object, really, but they're not a real human being. I don't feel like a human being, for instance. But experiencing all kind of inner states, spiritual states, does not necessarily make you a real human being who could interact, has a life, and all that. You realize, a person could feel ashamed of myself. I haven't got it. I'm not going to tell anybody. It's the last thing I show anybody that I really haven't got it. There has been, for a study, I heard. What is the biggest secret that people have? They won't tell anybody else. You know what was number one? To feel that you haven't got it. But something very basic is you haven't got. Nobody wants to tell anybody, but everybody feels it, because it's the basic, quality of ego. You see, when you're not realize that your depth, it's true, you haven't got it. Something you're not in touch with. So the person, I haven't got it. What is it? I can't even relate to this person. If you go with that, in time, they will emerge in the heart center, more the personal essence, the sense of being a human individual, a person who can truly, directly make direct contact with another human being in a real way and have a true personal life. But then, if that's in the heart becomes the place of human being, you see, you are the center of the cross. You see? But the cross is here as a sign of resurrection. It's not exactly a sign of crucifixion. So I just talked about the lataif and emergence of the personal essence, which is the first dimension that arises usually if you go beyond the usual emotional and mental manifestations. But you see how the lataif, or those subtle aspects of ourselves, are pretty much intertwined with what we need to go on the journey. We need curiosity, we need intelligence, we need love, we need strength, we need will. Without them, you can't really continue. It's not only you can't go on the journey, even your life, you can't manage it well. So as you see, the aspect of being, the aspect of essence as, an important part of being a human being and living more of a real human life that is more fulfilled, in a genuine way fulfilled. But the fulfillment, as you see, a large part of the fulfillment is you are. Yourself is the fulfillment. I mean, that's one thing about exploring yourself, discovering yourself, the unfoldment of your being, is that there's always a joy at the discovery. The way you see a child, a little kid, full of joy when they see something completely new, that's how always the experience is, full of joy, like full of appreciation, like you're discovering who you are. You're intrinsically who you are. Okay? And as I said, it's the beginning of the mysterious world. The world started being full of that kind of richness and color and qualities, which are, I'm sure must be experienced once in a while, but it's not a dominant thing in life. That thing becomes more dominant. The usual personal way, emotions, and those don't go away. They don't dominate the scene. They have their own place, but there are other things, other deeper parts of you that keep participating in your life. And if you're really open, and in the sense you don't have to close it, okay, and now I discovered myself, it's closed. The moment you do, in time you learn that's by itself the problem. The moment you close your mind, you establish ego again. When you're leaving yourself open, things emerging and manifesting is really more the natural thing. If you allow that, things will go so much deeper. They become so varied, so rich. See, you realize in time you're not bounded by the body that you walk with. Like sometimes, for instance, I experience myself. You say, "Well, I'm sitting in a chair." Well, I don't experience myself. The way I experience myself is I'm sitting in my own lap. I'm actually sitting in my own lap. So what does that mean, sitting in my own lap? What's the finger feel when it's sitting in the hand? Is it sitting in a chair? That's what you're sitting in your own lap. If you really investigate that, you might be interested in studying mathematical topology and multidimensional spaces, because that's relevant to how things fold into each other from different dimensions, how the dimension of consciousness comes into the physical dimension, how they meld together. You get into the idea of the Klein bottle or the Mobius string, and how being manifests, and you realize that you are really a four-dimensional being. The fourth dimension is more like consciousness and being. That time you're not only four-dimensional being, you're sitting here, more and more that expand. You realize you are one with the humanity. That humanity makes one beingness, one living being. That the very core of who we are, the center of our soul, where the heart resides. When you experience the heart of the soul, you experience yourself connected with all humanity in a very intimate, intrinsic way, not through your mind, but actually the way a finger is connected with another finger. You see? Not by thinking I'm connected with it. And if you go deeper, you realize you connect with everything, and that you become everything. That's what's called universal consciousness. That you are the universe. In time you realize that the universe is really a robe that you wear. The whole universe is what's called the logos, the word, which is beautiful harmony of everything as one being in constant transformation and a constant state of resurrection from nothing. And then you could really go even deeper, and you realize you are the mystery from which all that comes. And you could just look at the whole show, not just your personal show, but the whole cosmic show as something emerging and happening. Not only you is emerging, transforming, it's really the whole universe like that. A constant, wonderful state of change and transformation. And that state of change, transform includes life and death and everything in it. But all that's the mystery you get to through knowing who you are. So as you see, in my perception, my way of looking at things, things work better, or let's say they're more enjoyable, more real, more festive, if I go about it from a perspective of love, perspective of enjoyment, perspective of excitement, perspective of discovery and play, than the perspective I got a problem, I'm going to deal with it. You're already in the wrong perspective when you do that. You're already holding on to the fixed point of view that you already have. The world of problems. There's the world of problems and the world of mystery. The world of mystery contains the world of problems, but contains 1,000 things more. So, so that I don't like, to look at the work we do here as some kind of a spiritual work or therapy, or we're getting enlightened, and all these things that give the person all kind of funny ideas in their mind. So I like to look at it as really finding out what is it, who we are, what's this world we live in, and participate in it in the way we're supposed to participate in it. That is our true inheritance. We're not trying to live according to somebody's ideals or idea or what's, we'll find what is it? Who the hell are we? What are we? And see how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to live. To leave the door open to find out. And from that perspective, it seems like there's no end to it. It's just a constant, continual process of change and transformation, which is always happening. Everybody actually experiences change and transformation all the time. See, your body's always changing, your mind's always changing, friends are all, everything is changing. But we're looking at it as sort of from the surface part. It's changing. Like there is this being, right, has a skin. The skin changing. But you're not looking at the totality of the being, the depth with it. There are all kinds of things happening. So when you integrate the whole thing, when you see the whole thing, it's just of the top layer, you realize, oh, there's change happening here because there's a ripple from all the way underneath here. That's why somebody got something there on their head, you see. And looks much more mysterious, much more interesting. So now we'll have questions. Do you have any questions?
Does this process happen spontaneously?
It could. I think it's always happening spontaneously, except most of us miss it. Miss its manifestations because we want to hold on to a certain perspective. See? Our being can't help but manifest and all the time. But we miss it because our mind is focused in a certain area. And we feel threatened if we don't focus in that area. So some people get to notice it, and they'll say the experience happening spontaneously. People who don't notice it, they go do some work on themselves, with or without a teacher or school. right? Where there's guidance, and the guidance is nothing is to show you that's what's happening, and for you to trust it in time. But there's no other way for it to happen but spontaneously. The whole universe is a spontaneous happening. Yeah.
In the process of development that you've described it mainly in terms of what happens to the single person, the individual.
Yeah.
Could you say something about the role of other people, teachers, fellow students, family, whatever, in relation to this process?
I don't know. It's a whole subject for itself. The process happens with or without a teacher, with or without family. It doesn't matter where it's happening. If you have a family and work and all of that, that becomes part and parcel of the process. You can't separate it. And you realize you have to look at your family, investigate your family and your life and your work. And if you look at it, it will be enriched with the new discoveries you find about yourself and the truth. You can't separate the two. Sometimes that creates some problems for some people, right? Because if you happen to be, for instance, in a kind of job for 10 years, and by investigating, finding out about you, you realize that you've been doing this job because your father wanted you to do it, but your heart is not in it. Well, the change could be painful sometimes. You have to maybe you might not want it. You get bored with it. You want something else. You're angry at your daddy for all of that. That process is process separation and grief, and until you start doing something that is more in accord with who you are. So this thing could happen. Sometimes not. Some people find out what they're doing could just become transformed and gets enriched with their new discoveries, gets filled with their being. So it depends on the person pretty much. The way we do the work here, this approach, is that we do it as part of life. I don't do it, person don't have to separate from their life. They don't have to isolate themselves, take certain period, a few years, or whatever you go, special place. No, we do it as part of your living. So we have our meetings sort of regularly, every other week or so, and your life is in your mind, and everything is part of what's investigated, what's looked at. So it's doing the work as part of life, because ultimately, the work, the actual process of the work, the actual fulfillment, becomes your life.
I guess there's still something I'm not looking at, because if we're like fingers of a hand, and what happens to one finger, this finger, I can't move my finger over here without the other fingers going along. And so the changes that would happen in one person will affect or be reacted against.
That will happen, yeah. If somebody starts changing, people around them probably respond or react to those changes. And depending on those people could have the effect be positive, and some people react to it and they don't want it. It would be too threatening. See? But it's not true. You can't move the finger away from the other, because things are much more organic and mysterious than that. See, two fingers might go together, they might go their separate ways, just like regular life, but looked at from in a different way, from more of an inner way. The kind of thing that happens in people's lives, normal things. See, for me to participate in the real world does not mean anything unusual. You see, it's important for me that I live a normal life, normal to everybody's. Person who drives a car, who has family and work and interest and this and that, and like movies, and everything is normal. And I think that's our work, that's an important cornerstone of it, because that tends to ground the work into our life instead of making some kind of mystical, spiritual, otherworldly thing, which doesn't exist. This is the other world. This, as you see, the table, as you see, is God's back. Really. And that's how I see it. In the beginning, you might have all kind of far-out experiences. In time, you realize those experiences, you're separating the face, the front from the back. In time, they become together. You realize this very world we live in, that what you see, everything around you that looks like stone or rocks, is really itself the love that you are feeling in your heart. That it has all this living, harmonious, luminous quality to it. And the more you see that, the more that your need for love from other people get less and less. Because you realize, after a while, so you're pining away, nobody loves me. And then you open your eyes, the rock is made out of love. After a while, you wise up. So wait a minute. I keep pining away, but nobody loves me, and I'm sitting around, and there's love everywhere. What is business? You see? In time, it takes a lot of work to wise up. You see, people could see love manifesting around all the time, but they're still, no, this person has to love me. That one particular person with such and such eyes, if he doesn't love me or if she doesn't love me, it's the pits. Who cares about this love all around and things like that? It's not important. But in time, the love and the true beingness encroaches on your consciousness, and your sense of ego sort of dissolve a little bit. You relax. You become more reasonable and less of a brat. It's called that's the refinement of the ego. You get to relax about things and realize, things, they are what they are. They'll continue changing and transforming. And if you just want them in a certain way instead of the way they are, you're just gonna have a hard time. That's one of the natural laws of the universe. But you see, the thing gets sort of difficult because it's not just a matter of being stubborn or I have to have that. It's more like if you let go of that love affair or the possibility of having to have the right thing or the right situation, the right job or whatever. If you let go of that, it means you're going to lose part of yourself. It will expose another thing that you didn't know. So if you let go of that, I have to have that person love me. If you let go of that, so okay, it's fine, gone, they're gone, whatever. The moment you let yourself, you start feeling a little shaky inside yourself. You realize, oh, that's why I wanted the love, so that I feel supported. So I feel, and deeper inside, you're seeing yourself as a little infant, and that needs mommy, to hold you in her arms. And you see that that deep identification made you feel you need that. But when you let go of it, you start experiencing the inner state, the inner ego identification that impels you to have wanted that way, regardless of what else you have. And when you start seeing that, and you start feeling maybe a vulnerability, maybe a state of feeling empty and meaningless, that just exposes another hole, which will take you to another part of yourself, which you might find as, another one of those mysteries. See, that's why I see it's happening like that all the time. See? The mystery is always happening. The transformation is always happening. See? It's just a different set mindset. You look at it with this lens or with that lens. See? Some lenses take a slice of reality and see it just out of that slice. Some lenses see it in several slices. Some lenses have a telescopic kind of thing, see it all the way through. So it depends which lens you're putting on. See? So the world we see, the physical world, also, it's not that completely it doesn't exist. It exists, but as one dimension of seeing things. But we are much more of a mysterious kind of thing. The world is much more wonderful, much more mysterious than being just have to be one thing. It's much more. It could be one thing, it could be another thing. It could change and transform from all kinds of ways. See? Yes?
If we live in the now, what happens to memory?
have to memory. That's what I've been noticing these days, that I forget a lot. And I've been saying, what happened like last year, such and such happened, and I remember I had gaps in it. But what I think, that's just a transitional state. I think in the process of integration, sometimes certain states of emptiness in the mind, whatever, it interferes with the memory and many kinds of things. But as you stabilize in the new state, the memory becomes more normal. Everything becomes normal. And there is memory, but the memory, you don't have control over it. It happens more spontaneously. Like what's needed, you remember what's needed, right? If I sit down and try to remember this, I might not be able to. But if the need arises, I remember it. So it becomes more organic, like that, right? But as you see, there's a tremendous, a need for tremendous kind of trust that you're in good hands. And we realize that, our memory, our thought processes, our mind, they could function in different ways, in the sense that we don't need them for certain things. See, the problem with memory is that we use our memory to define who we are. See? That's the problem with the mind. The mind uses its capacities to define who we are. Now, that's not the job of the mind. The mind cannot define who we are. Cannot use memory to define who we are. So memory becomes the problem. You see? You start living in the past instead of being in the now. Because we're using our memory to define who we are now. But who we are now, God knows where it is, how it's going to be. You see? So as you let yourself be in the now, that part of the memory starts sort of relaxing and letting go. And you might experience sometime lapses of memory. You see? But then you start living in the now, you realize that the now has nothing to do with time. See? That the now contains all the time. And memory is a small part of your mind that it's useful for certain things. If you want to go someplace, you need to remember how to go, where to go. Right? And that the mind has uses. You need to figure out things. You're going to make a meal that night. Well, you need to figure out things. What are the ingredients and how much? That's a good function of the mind. It tells you, what needs to be done, which book to go look at, cookbook, and where to buy the ingredients, and things like that. But the moment the mind says, but you are such a person sitting there doing that, it transcends its limits. Problem starts. And then you start even feeling depressed about it. You want your mommy to do it, or you're angry because you have to do it in time. All this starts coming up. Well, if your mind just doing what's supposed to do, things are fine. So mind and memory and all of that, really nothing happens to them. Nothing's supposed to happen to them. They're part of our total functioning. And some people seem to have lapses of memories while they go in deeper states more than others. Some people doesn't affect them. Some people affect some temporarily. I seem once in a while to sort of forget certain things. Certain things get vague, but doesn't seem to bother me. Like the only thing I can think of is, I'm getting old, maybe. What's that? I'm getting old. Maybe I'm going to die. And then next day I go, God, I wonder what that'll be like. Right? But maybe dying is not different from losing all of your memory. If all my memory disappears right now, I'm not remembering anything from the past, well, maybe that's more like death. You see how things are organic, one could lead to the other, you don't know what's hitting you first. All of it may be the experience of, the aspect of death arising, and you might, experience first as losing of your memory, and your body getting sick, stuff like that. You think you're going to die, and it's true you're going to die, but it's not your body that's going to die. But since your ego thinks you are the body, you think your body is going to die, and you go through all these things. And then finally the state arises and The memory is gone. Silence. And then you wake up again and say, oh, so what's happening? That was the death. And all this time I thought maybe I was getting cancer or something. And that's why I was scared. So you don't know what's affecting your mind, you see, from what area. So our consciousness is such an intricate, connected, organic, mysterious, exquisite kind of thing. That's amazing. If you just let yourself be open, let it happen. And to be curious so that you could